Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our first run review of the Asics Metaspeed Sky Tokyo. So the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo is a new carbon plate racing shoe from Asics. We did actually cover the shoe when it first launched in Tokyo earlier this year, but we didn't get a chance to actually keep the shoe or do some proper running in it. So I'm going to take it out tomorrow for a double workout day and give my thoughts on it then, a bit more extensive than our original first run. So as with previous versions of the Metaspeed shoe, there is both a Sky and an Edge model, which have slight differences in design to try and suit different runners. And the Sky Tokyo is the successor to my favourite racing shoe pretty much of all time, the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris, which I've run my marathon PB in and my half marathon PB in, and it's had some pretty significant updates, including a price jump. It now costs £240 or $270. A more positive change is that it's even lighter than before. It was already one of the lightest racing shoes on the market, but it's now just 169 grams or 6 ounces in my UK size 9, which is a US 10. It's even lighter than the listed stats Asics gave. It's the same 5mm drop and a stack height of 39.5mm at the heel, 34.5mm at the forefoot. So in terms of the design of the shoe and how it differs to the Metaspeed Sky Paris, you've now got a new Motion Wrap 3.0 upper, which is an updated version of this very breathable, lightweight material that we've seen on the Metaspeed series in the past. One more noticeable change is the redesigned heel on the shoe, which has just got a slightly different configuration, different padding. I think it's a little bit looser from my very initial impression, so I'll see how that feels on an extended run tomorrow. And the bigger change comes in the midsole, where on the Metaspeed Sky Paris you had a midsole entirely made of Asics' FF Turbo Plus foam. There are now two foams in the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo's midsole. The bottom layer is FF Leap, which is the very soft and springy foam introduced with the Metaspeed Ray. There are other carbon plate racing shoes, now 3 in the Asics lineup. That's going to sit above the Sky and the Tokyo as their softest, springiest ride and their lightest racing shoe. But in the Metaspeed Ray, the entire midsole is made from FF Leap, but in the Sky Tokyo it's the bottom layer of the shoe, and the top layer is still the FF Turbo Plus, which is a slightly denser material compared to this new FF Leap foam. Notably, in the Metaspeed Edge Tokyo racing shoe, the foams are reversed. The FF Leap foam is on top and the FF Turbo Plus is on the bottom. As you'd expect, you've also got a full-length carbon plate running through the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo, and that's the other big difference to the Edge Tokyo. The plate sits higher in the midsole on the Sky Tokyo, so you can feel it a bit more under your foot. And then you've got an Asics grip rubber outsole with a similar setup to what you had on the Sky Paris, which is to say there's very minimal coverage, but the key areas are covered to give you grip and traction on the forefoot, a little bit at the heel, but a lot of exposed foam there, which can lead to it ripping up a little bit over extended use. So I'm going to head out for my first proper runs in the Asics Metaspeed Sky Tokyo tomorrow when I've got a double workout day. I used it for like a steady 5k out in Tokyo, just after using the Metaspeed Ray for a steady 5k. So if you want to see a bit more of a comparison of the two shoes, we have that video on the channel. But tomorrow, proper tough workouts in the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo to really see how it feels. So in the morning, I'm going to get out straight away and do a 10 times 1k workout, doing those reps at 3:30 a k pace, which is around my marathon pace, basically, off I think it's 60 seconds. I'll need to check that. And then in the afternoon, I've got a slightly faster workout. I'm going to do 20 times 400 meters at 75 seconds per rep with 100 meters jog / stagger recovery, depending on how I feel after that first workout. So yeah, 2 good workouts. I'm probably going to check in between the 2 workouts and then afterwards to see how the shoe's feeling, but I'm really excited. It's an exciting day of training and it's a very exciting shoe. Huge fan of the Sky Paris. Sky Tokyo looks like a pretty simple upgrade in that the design and the geometry of the shoe all looks very similar, but with, in theory, a better foam on the bottom half of the shoe that makes it even lighter. So yeah, can't wait to get running in it tomorrow. First run done, that was all nice and controlled, felt really good, just rolling through those 3:30k reps. Shoe felt very good, it feels really light. I think you are getting a little bit more bounce here than with the previous model, a little bit less stability I would say, but yeah, you really feel as you come onto that forefoot, it's a big booming level of bounce there, and it's what you had with the Metaspeed Sky Paris as well. You really feel the propulsion off the toes here with that, the plate sitting a bit closer to the toes in the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo, and then the extra layer, big layer of this FF Leap foam, which I think does add a little bit of extra bounce there, whilst making the shoe a little bit wobblier, I would say. But yeah, it was crazy pulling it on the track. It just feels so lightweight when you first pull it on, and then just rolling around there, nice and controlled. It felt like I could run all day. It'd be interesting to see how it feels a bit later at some faster paces when I'll probably be pushing a bit harder, especially by the end of the session. But yeah, first one ticked off and it felt great. So just back after the second workout of the day now, which was good. Pace was there for the whole session, pretty tough in the second half of that. 2400s is always a lot of 400s no matter what the condition you're in. And yeah, second workout of the day on a pretty hot day. Could certainly feel it by the end, but shoes felt really good. Again, yeah, you could feel all that bounciness, especially in the first half of reps, in the first half of the workout, really sprightly, running really strong and really feeling the bounce and the lightweight design. And then second half of reps, second half of the workout in general, when you start to just tire and just try and get locked into a rhythm just to kind of help you hold a pace to keep going through. And it was easy to do that in the shoes as well. You're still getting a pretty propulsive feel, even as I was tiring, rocking back a bit, losing a bit of purpose in my running. The shoes were still kind of helping to punch me on and make sure all the reps are pretty similar, and I was able to hold the pace strong throughout each of them. So yeah, probably decent wedge of running in the shoes for the day, probably something like 22, 23, 24k in the shoes today, with another 10 odd in some comfortable shoes for warm-ups and cool downs. So got a good feel for them. They really impressed me throughout the day. Really excited to get out and do some racing in them. Hopefully other guys in the team will get in the shoes as well. We were expecting them, and we were expecting the Edge as well, but I haven't had the Edge in yet to compare. But yeah, Sky Tokyo feels like a really good shoe, and really enjoyed it for those two workouts today. So when it comes to the fit of the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo, it fits very similarly to the Metaspeed Sky Paris in terms of length. I've got a good amount of room here. I get a UK 9 across the Asics range, and the Metaspeed series tend to be a little bit closer around the toes than shoes like the Nova Blast or Super Blast. So if you find in your size the Super Blast is quite close to your toes, or another Asics shoe like the Nimbus is quite close to your toes, you might want to go half a size up in the Metaspeed, but that's not the case for me. I've got enough room there, certainly for races of any distance, having done just a couple of marathons in the Metaspeed Sky Paris. Got no problems with that. I do think there's a little bit of heel lift in the new design of the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo in terms of the amount of space at the back there. It doesn't feel very cinched in around the heel, but it wasn't actually a problem. As soon as I started running, I didn't really think about it at all. I could feel it moving a bit, the very first few steps in the shoe, but it didn't bother me. I didn't get any kind of rubbing there or anything like that. Didn't really notice it at all in either workout, so I don't think it's a problem. I didn't bother to heel lock the shoe, but yeah, you might notice a little bit of movement around the heel there when you're running in the shoe, which wasn't really there with the Metaspeed Sky Paris. So that's probably the only difference I've really noticed in fit, but I would stick to your normal running shoe size in general. So very early verdict on the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo. Like I say, hopefully the other guys on the team will get hold of the shoe for our full review, and I'll get plenty more miles done in it and some racing done in it before the full review as well, ideally. But yeah, feels like a great shoe. I love the Metaspeed Sky Paris. Metaspeed Sky Tokyo feels like a similar shoe in terms of the way it's set up, the geometry, in terms of the punch you get off the forefoot, but it's all maybe increased a little bit in terms of the amount of booming bounce you get off that forefoot with all that FF Leap foam underfoot, and the fact it is a lighter shoe. I think you are getting a slightly wobblier feel now compared to the previous model. I did do a short run wearing both shoes at the same time. I think there's a bit more compression in the soft foam on the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo, but not something that really concerned me at all today over those two long workouts. So I think it's going to be fine on the stability front, just as long as you treat it as a racing shoe, and bear in mind it's not going to be the most stable shoe, like neither was the Metaspeed Sky Paris, to be fair. And I do think you have got improved ride in terms of the lightness, the bounciness. I don't think it's night and day in comparison to the Metaspeed Sky Paris. I think you've got a really solid incremental improvement here. I wouldn't necessarily go rush out and buy this if you've got a nice fresh pair of Sky Paris, but we'll talk more about that obviously in the full review, see how it performs in some races, do some comparisons in that. I'm not going to compare it to stuff like the Puma Fast R3 now, just a couple of runs in it today, but it feels like a really strong addition to the Metaspeed lineup. Got the Ray coming in time as well, we'll give that a proper test as well. But all in all, if you're going to try and keep things simple in this slightly convoluted Asics lineup we've got now, Metaspeed Sky Paris is an amazing shoe. Feels like the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo is going to be an amazing race shoe, and look forward to running in it again. That's our first look at the Asics Metaspeed Sky Tokyo. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe and ring the little bell so you get notified when we do videos in general. Check out the website, check out the podcast, and yeah, we'll see you next time.